I said I will buy him.
Don't hurt him. I'll buy him, she said. Call him savage all you want. I see a man worth saving. The dust hung thick in the afternoon air, coating Red Rock Gulch in grit. The town square, just a patch of earth between the saloon and the assay office, was crowded. Men in worn hats and sweat-darkened shirts clustered together, their voices rising and falling like heat off the ground. Women in calico dresses stood back, children pressed to their skirts, all drawn by the grim spectacle. At the center stood Sheriff Dalton, his badge catching the harsh sun. Beside him, shackled, was a broad-shouldered man with silver-streaked hair, wrists raw from rusted chains. Yet he held his head high, dignity untouched by iron. My name is Caleb Stone. Weeks ago I was a ghost wandering the high desert, a soldier broken by a lost war. My honor gone, my heart a tombstone, my life reduced to whiskey and the empty hope of gold. Now I was accused of treachery, condemned to be bonded out like an animal for a crime I never committed. Step right up, Dalton barked, his voice booming across the square. Got a traitor here caught helping Apaches steal from decent folks. $50 to start. The crowd stirred. Spittle flew. Traitor, someone shouted. Indian lover, another jeered. Their words flew like stones, and though I stood in chains, I didn't flinch. Their hatred mirrored my past. They called men like me ghostwalkers half seen, never trusted, cursed to wander between two worlds. A memory rose unbidden. A homestead burning, children screaming, a mother struck down. I had been there, silent in the smoke, rifle heavy in my hands, watching instead of stopping it. That silence weighed heavier than any chain. Now, as I faced the jeers, I saw the same darkness in their faces, the cruelty men carry when law is just a mask. My life had been nothing but regret and dust. The only thing that kept me standing was a name whispered in gulches and canyons, Ilara, the last Apache ghost, a girl who had lost her kin to greed and fire, who lived wild and untamed. In her story, I recognized my own. Then her voice split the air. Don't sell him. The crowd shifted, surprise cutting through their cruelty. Through them came a woman like no other, skin the color of earth, hair braided with beads and feathers, storm-gray eyes blazing with defiance. Elada, known in town as the Wild One, too proud to tame, too stubborn to break. I'll buy him, she said, steady though her hands trembled. Dalton sneered. Now see here, this ain't charity, he's dangerous. I said I'll buy him. She drew a polished turquoise from her pouch, one of the last pieces from her mother's necklace. Its color was bright as summer sky, a blue that mocked the dust around us. Gasps rose from the crowd. You've lost your mind, someone shouted. That's blood money. One. Ilara's gaze didn't waver. This stone is worth more than 100 men, and I see a man with a warrior's heart. For the first time in years, something flickered inside me, not surprise, but recognition. Dalton shifted uneasily. Judge Harrison was riding circuit and wouldn't be back for 2 weeks. In his absence, Dalton had been bonding out prisoners to whoever paid their fines up front. Even a native woman's payment counted. He snatched the stone, scowled when it proved true, and muttered, "Bond docket will be at my office." "I'll take him now," Ilara pressed. Dalton's mustache twitched. "Now see here, you said he's under bonded custody. Then he's in my care. Or you can explain to Judge Harrison why you refused a lawful surety bond." That silenced him. With a growl, he unlocked my ankle shackles, though the wrist iron stayed. He kept a hand near his colt as the crowd grudged a path. Ilara stepped close, her voice low enough only I heard. "Come with me." I inclined my head, dignity my last armor, and followed. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, but their faces showed only disgust and fear. "You'll regret this." Mrs. Patterson, the banker's wife, called out, her voice sharp as a whip. Ilara didn't turn. "The only thing I'd regret is letting you treat a man like livestock." The blacksmith muttered she'd get herself killed. The doctor's son whispered maybe it was their own nature that needed civilizing. His father cuffed him silent. At the sheriff's office, Dalton scrawled the bond paper with angry strokes. His hand trembled with frustration as the ink bled. "May the Lord help you, because you sure ain't helping yourself." He tossed Ilara the key with a snort. "Don't come crying when he cuts your throat." Her eyes flashed. "The only throat cut lately was by your drunk deputy, and he's as white as you." She turned, leaving Dalton red-faced and fuming. Outside, she faced me. The key glinted in her hand. "I won't keep you chained. Where would you run?" She unlocked the irons. They fell with a dull clang, leaving welts and blood on my wrists. I rubbed them, the first human act I'd shown in months. "You'll need salve," she said. "My ranch is an hour's ride. Can you make it?" The ghost of a smile tugged at my lips. I nodded. We walked toward the livery stable, whispers trailing us like snakes in the dust. Ilara had crossed a line no longer just the wild one, but a woman dangerous to the order of things. She knew it. Yet she held her head high, each step measured, defiant. And me? Shackles gone, but not my ghosts. I had lived through war, through shame, through silence that had broken my soul. I thought I was beyond saving, but as I matched her stride, I felt a stirring I hadn't known in years. Purpose. Maybe Ilara couldn't save her family, and I couldn't erase the blood on my hands. But walking beside her, I thought perhaps we might save each other. If you enjoy the story, hit that subscribe button right away. And if you don't, then just hit the like button anyway to keep more Wild West love stories coming. The consequence of freedom was a silence heavier than any chain. As we rode from Red Rock Gulch, leaving the stairs behind, the air between Ilara and me was thick with unspoken questions. Every hoofbeat seemed to echo the bargain she had struck a turquoise stone for my life. That stone haunted me. I knew enough to see its worth, not just in trade, but in memory. Likely the last piece from her mother's necklace, carried through loss and fire. She had given it up for me, a man in chains. The thought sat heavier on my shoulders than any iron ever had. The sun hammered the horizon. Dust curled beneath our horses' hooves, and the creak of leather was the only rhythm that broke the quiet. I rode stiff in the saddle, back straight, eyes scanning the ridges as habit demanded. Once, in war, I had learned danger came from every direction. That lesson never left me. Ilara rode close, her figure outlined in the falling light, braids glinting with beads that caught the sun. From the corner of my eye I saw her shift, favoring her left side. A wound, maybe. Hurts not all visible, but carried. "We'll stop at the creek," she said, pointing toward a line of cottonwoods that shimmered green against the red earth. At the water, she dismounted carefully, knelt, and drank from her hands, as though honoring the land itself. She could have used the tin cup tied to her saddle, but instead she cupped her palms, let the water run through her fingers, let it glisten like liquid silver. When she looked up, I was watching. "The water's good here," she said. Words scraped out of me, rough from disuse. "Water knows. Clean heart, clean water." She blinked, surprised at the sound of my voice. My English was accented but clear. "You speak well," she said softly. "Mission school," I answered shortly. Then, after a pause, bitterness slipped out. "They say, make us civilized." The silence between us grew heavy. She didn't push further, only studied me for a long moment. Then she asked my name. I let the quiet stretch until it seemed I might never speak again. Finally, "Caleb. They gave me Caleb at the mission. My people Stone. Caleb Stone." She repeated it gently, as if testing the weight. "Caleb." I studied her face, the steadiness in her eyes. "You are not afraid?" "No." "Should I be?" she asked. "Others always fear. They see ghost walker. You see man?" "Yes," Ilara said simply. Something shifted in me then, a knot loosening, though pain lanced through my ribs when I moved. "You're hurt," she said, sharp with concern. I shrugged, then pulled aside my shirt. Bruises spread dark across my ribs, scars etched like maps across my back. "Who did this?" she whispered, though the answer was plain. "Does not matter, is done." "Like." "It matters to me," she said fiercely. I looked at her with something close to wonder. Strange woman. Buy man like horse, yet worry for his pain. "I didn't buy a man," she said. "I bought your freedom." Her words struck deeper than any bullet. We mounted again and rode on. She spoke of the land, how the ridge had been sold to pay taxes, how her family once dreamed of orchards near the oak. She spoke haltingly at first, then with the slow rhythm of someone who had carried silence too long. I said little, but she felt the weight of being heard. When her ranch came into view, pride and shame fought in her eyes. The sagging fence, the patched barn roof, the garden gone to weeds. "It's not much," she said quietly, almost defensive. I studied it with the same eye I once used for battlefields. Good bones. Land wants to live. Just needs care. That. She looked at me as though unsure whether to take it as comfort or judgment. As we neared the gate, I stiffened, hand moving instinctively where a rifle once hung. "What is it?" she asked quickly. I pointed to the ground. 3 horses. Fresh tracks. Her face tightened. Visitors. We rounded the barn. 3 horses stood tied to her porch rail, their riders lounging as though they owned the place. Dale Morrison, heavy with prosperity, his fine hat shading cold gray eyes, stood at the center. Flanking him were 2 ranch hands I recognized by reputation mean drunks, the Harmon brothers. "Afternoon, Alara," Morrison drawled, voice slick with false courtesy. "Heard about your bond purchase. Came to see if you'd truly lost your mind." "My mind is sound," she said, her voice cool but taut. "Is it? Only a fool brings a ghost walker onto her land." His gaze pinned me, sizing me like stock. I stood still but ready, shoulders squared. "His name is Caleb," Alara snapped. "He's here to help with ranch work. Unless you're planning to mend my roof, I suggest you mind your own business." Morrison's face flushed. "I've offered fair price for this land more than once. If you endanger the town, don't expect protection." "The danger," she cut him off, "is uninvited guests telling me how to live." One Harmon brother spat in the dust. "Ain't natural, Apache woman taking up with a ghost walker. Folks are talking." Her temper snapped. "Then they'd do better to read their Bibles instead of spreading gossip." Morrison stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the porch. Before he could close the space, I moved between them. I said nothing, but my stance was enough. "You threatening me, boy?" Morrison snarled, eyes narrowing. Alara's voice cracked like a whip. "That's enough. You need to leave." Morrison's lips curled. "This ain't over. When that ghost walker shows his true nature, you'll come begging to sell." "Get off my land!" Alara shouted, fury blazing. They mounted, glaring back as they rode off in a cloud of dust. After, Alara shook, her hands trembling. I guided her to the porch and brought water from the barrel. She drank deep, breath uneven. "Thank you," she whispered. I crouched before her. "This because of me. I go, trouble goes." "No," she said quickly, then softer. "Number, the trouble was here long before you. Morrison's been circling since my family died. You're just his excuse." I considered this, then asked, "Why you do this? Buy freedom for stranger?" Her eyes dropped to her hands. "When I saw you in chains, it was like watching my family die again helpless. Then there was someone I could save, and I did." "Yes," I said simply. The sky was burning crimson as the sun sank, shadows stretching across the yard. She rose slowly. "Come, I'll show you where you'll sleep. Then supper." She paused, waiting until I met her eyes. "Tomorrow we start fixing this place together." I nodded. For the first time since she had seen me in chains, something close to hope flickered in my chest. If you like Wild West love stories or Wild West stories, drop a bunch of 1 second and your place in the comments for the Wild West Love channel. Tell me where you're listening from, so I don't feel so alone out here. By first light the next morning, the cottonwoods were only a pale memory behind the ridge, and the ranch breathed with the hush of cautious quiet. The night had passed without riders on the road. Still, Alara moved like a woman who trusted neither silence nor shadows, pausing at the door before stepping out, scanning the fence line, testing each latch, checking the yard as if the earth itself might betray us. Even at the well she lingered, listening as though the bucket might carry rumors up from the dark water. I carried the tools without being asked, the weight of them more natural in my hands than the chains had ever been. The air was still cool, the grass jeweled with dew that would soon vanish in the heat. I followed her along the north fence where boards leaned tired. wire sagging from weather and neglect. We walked the perimeter in silence. She lifted wire, I braced posts, both of us working with the quiet rhythm of people who knew effort was the only prayer the land ever answered. When she winced, favoring her left side, I stepped in, handed her the driver before she could argue pride. She looked at me once, ready to resist, but said nothing. When she reached for a coil too heavy for one arm, I took the weight from her without ceremony. She let me. In her eyes I saw pride wrestling with relief, each unwilling to surrender. By mid-morning a breeze slid down from the ridge, cool and clean, stirring the smell of sage and dust. We found fresh sign of coyotes near the chicken run, the prints sharp where the soil was soft. Ilara knelt, her hand brushing the marks as if she could read their story like scripture. Hungry, she murmured, but cautious. We patched a gap where boards had pulled away, layering planks until the coop was snug again. All the while, she spoke quietly, haltingly of the ridge her father once owned, of the oaks he had planted with hope of shade and fruit, of the taxes that had stripped it all away. Her voice carried sorrow, but also a stubborn ember of pride. I spoke little, but when I did, it was of the work. Hold tighter there, or nail higher. Yet even those plain words seemed to steady her. The rhythm of labor steadied me too. Measure, cut, set, tie until the ranch began to feel less like a wound and more like a patient who might, with care, live again. Near noon she brought out bread and beans wrapped in cloth, setting them on the porch step between us. The smell was simple but good, smoke and salt mingling in the breeze. We ate without ceremony, each bite easing the hunger worked into our bones. When she reached for the dipper, her eyes flicked toward me, pausing at the purple bloom along my ribs where the shirt had pulled away. "You should rest," she said finally, her tone softer than command, but firmer than suggestion. I shook my head. "Work makes bone remember it is strong." Something in her face eased then. For the first time I saw her expression unarmored, a flicker of warmth breaking through. She didn't argue, only handed me the bread with the crust already split. The afternoon sun burned hotter. We worked along the north line until the fence stood straight, posts driven deep, wire taut as a bowstring. Sweat darkened my shirt, streaked dust into patterns across her face. She never complained, though her shoulders trembled when she lifted the last board. The garden, once only a tangle of weed, now showed rows where rows might be, neat furrows carved into the stubborn earth. We stacked warped boards by the barn, setting aside what could still serve, discarding the rest. By late day the light leaned gold. The land stretched wide and empty around us, but for the first time since I had seen it, I felt its breath steady. The house still sagged, the barn still scarred, but the ranch no longer looked abandoned. It looked alive. Only then did we both exhale, as if some held breath had finally been released. We stepped onto the porch. She sank onto the steps, shoulders taut, hands trembling though her jaw stayed proud. I brought water from the barrel, offered the dipper. She drank deep, the drops running down her chin, catching sun like silver. "This trouble," I said at last, voice low. "Because of me. I go, trouble goes." Her head snapped, fire in her gaze. "Number Morrison's shadow has stalked me since my family died. You're only the excuse he needed. He's been circling for years, waiting for me to stand alone." "Rhine." I weighed her words, then asked, "Why risk for me? Why buy strangers' freedom?" Her voice dropped, rough as gravel. "Because when I saw you in chains, it was like watching my father die again helpless. Only this time, I could save someone." Her words struck deeper than any bullet. I nodded once. Yes. The sun lowered, sky bleeding crimson across the horizon, painting the world in fire. She rose, gathering herself like a soldier ready for another battle. "Come, I'll show you where you'll sleep. Then supper." Inside, the house smelled of wood smoke, herbs dried on rafters, and years of silence. Shadows filled corners like forgotten grief. The floorboards creaked under her step, but the sound was less lonely than before. She gestured to a narrow room off the kitchen. It was meant for a hand, empty now. You'd be closer if danger came. "I understand," I said, voice low. That night, she moved about the kitchen, sleeves rolled, hair loose from its braids, the lamplight softening the angles of her face. I sat by the fire, watching the glow carve gentler lines from sorrow. She carried grief like steel, but strength kept her upright, moving forward despite the weight. We ate in near silence, broken only by the scrape of forks against worn plates. Yet the quiet no longer felt empty. It carried the steady beat of two lives adjusting to the same rhythm. At last she spoke, words simple but filled with resolve. "Tomorrow we mend the fences. After that, the roof. There's work enough for two." I inclined my head. For the first time in years, something more than survival stirred in me. A chance. Later, in the small room, I lay awake. The ranch spoke around me, coyotes crying far off, wind whispering through the grass, the barn settling with groans like old bones. From the kitchen came the faintest clink as Ilara cleared the last dish. Then silence, broken only by the soft rhythm of her breathing in the room beyond. It was not my home, yet it no longer felt strange. The night wrapped the house, and with it came the first fragile thread of belonging. Ilara had called me a man with a warrior's heart. In the dark, with stars burning cold beyond the window, I turned those words over like prayer beads. They felt heavier than iron, sharper than shame, stronger than blood. And in that moment, I made a vow. Her faith would not be wasted. Whatever came Morrison's shadow, the valley's gossip, the ghosts of war that still walked my sleep, I would not run again. For once in my life, I had somewhere to stand, and someone to stand beside. "Hey there, friend, take a moment and get yourself a full glass of water. It's easy to forget, but staying hydrated is crucial for your health. Also, if you've been sitting for a while, do a quick lap around the room and give your eyes a break from the screen. Your body will thank you." The smoke was visible from a mile away, a black column stabbing into the clear afternoon sky. Ilara and I had been mending the chicken coop when she caught sight of it, her hand tightening on the hammer. We both froze for half a breath, then without a word dropped our tools, ran for the horses, and kicked them hard toward the smoke. Hooves ate the ground as we cut east at a dead run. The Garrett farm lay to the east, a mile of rolling scrub and dust away. Paul and Martha Garrett lived there with their 3 children. As we crested the ridge, the source of the smoke came into view, the barn, flames roaring through its timber frame, sending sparks into the sky. People ran back and forth, shouting, their fear louder than the fire. "The children!" Martha's scream split the air. "Emma's still in there. She was playing in the loft." Her husband Paul fought like a madman to break free from the men restraining him. "Let me go," he roared. Doc Bradley and his son Tom held him tight. "You'll be killed if you run in there," the doctor shouted. "My daughter's in there," Paul bellowed, choking on smoke and rage. Before Ilara could speak, I was already moving. My legs carried me faster than thought, boots pounding across the yard. "Caleb," she cried after me, her voice swallowed by the roar of fire. The heat slapped me as I dove through the barn doors. Smoke filled my lungs, stung my eyes. Rafters groaned overhead, threatening collapse. I pushed forward, half blind, ears straining. "Emma!" I shouted. My voice was rough, nearly lost to the crackling inferno. Then faint, high, terrified, I heard a cough. The loft ladder still stood, though flames licked at its sides. I climbed 2 rungs at a time, the wood searing my palms. In the hayloft, a small figure crouched in the corner, eyes wide with terror. "It's all right," I rasped. "Come." She shook her head, frozen. I grabbed her, pulling her against me. She clung to my neck, coughing, face buried in my shoulder. The floor beneath us shuddered. A beam cracked with a deafening snap. I leapt from the loft, landing hard but still running, shielding Emma with my body as the barn groaned behind us. Then we burst into the sunlight. A cry rose from the crowd. Martha ran forward, tears cutting clean streaks through the soot on her face. I handed Emma into her arms, the girl sobbing but alive. "She breathes," I said simply, chest heaving. Scared but strong. Doc Bradley pushed forward, checking the child, but Martha clutched her daughter so tightly it seemed she would never let go. Paul Garrett stumbled toward me, his face pale. He stared at me as though seeing a ghost. This was the same man who, not a week ago, had called me a danger. Now he choked on words. I was wrong about you. I'm sorry. God forgive me. I'm sorry. I nodded once. No debt, I said quietly. Neighbors help neighbors. But there was no time for more. Sparks blew toward the house. Buckets were already moving hand to hand from the well. Without a word, I grabbed a place in the line, passing water, throwing it where the flames threatened to spread. Ilara joined too, sleeves rolled up, her braid loose, working until her arms trembled. We fought for hours. The barn couldn't be saved, but by dusk the house still stood. Smoke curled into the cooling sky, a monument to loss, but also to survival. The people of Red Rock Gulch stood watching the smoldering ruin. For once, their eyes weren't full of suspicion when they looked at me. Some looked away, ashamed. Some nodded. Sheriff Dalton approached, his voice gruff. That was a brave thing you did. Child needed help, I answered simply. Dalton shifted, uncomfortable. Still, not many men would have gone in there. Mrs. Patterson, the banker's wife, stood nearby. Her sharp tongue had called me beast before. Now she stared, lips pressed tight. At last she said, Mr. Stone, what you did today was heroic. Before I could reply, little Emma spoke up from her mother's arms. The nice man saved me, Mama. He came through the smoke like an angel. Her voice carried clear. The murmurs that followed were different than before, not scorn, but wonder. Martha, still shaking, stepped forward. She looked me straight in the eye. You saved my baby. I don't care what anyone says. You'll always be welcome at our table. Then, in front of everyone, she kissed my cheek. The crowd gasped. Mrs. Patterson sputtered, Martha, but Martha whirled on her. Don't you Martha me, Prudence. This man risked his life while others just argued. If that makes him a ghost walker, then maybe we need more ghost walkers. Paul Garrett stepped forward too, extending his hand. His eyes were wet. I owe you a debt I can never repay. But I'll start by saying I was wrong. I clasped his hand. No debt, I said again. Neighbors. For the first time in years, the word didn't feel empty. The crowd slowly dispersed, but something had changed. Some men clapped my shoulder. Some women whispered, their eyes softer. Not all, not Reverend Blackwood, who muttered about devils in disguise, but enough. Ilara stood beside me, her face fierce with pride. As we turned to leave, Tom Bradley hurried up. Mr. Stone, he said, almost shy, I want to learn from you. About horses, about tracking, if you'll teach me. I studied him, then nodded once. Come to ranch, we talk. The walk home was quiet. Smoke still smeared the sky. Ilara noticed me holding my arm stiffly. You're hurt. Small burn, nothing bad. She didn't believe me, but said only, we'll tend it at home. Back at the ranch, she cleaned the burns with steady hands. Her face was pale, her eyes shadowed. At last she whispered, you could have died. You would have gone in for child, I said softly. I know this. Her hands froze. When you disappeared into that fire, I was more afraid than I've ever been. Not even when my family, she broke off, swallowing hard. I caught her hand gently. I am here, I said simply. Not going anywhere. Her eyes met mine then, wide and searching. For the first time, I thought she believed me. That night, she didn't send me to the barn. She hesitated by the door. There's a room off the kitchen, she said. It's empty. You'd be closer if danger came. I understood. For the first time since her family's deaths, Ilara slept with another soul under her roof, knowing he would rise if danger came. And in that small room, listening to the night sounds of a place not yet mine, I made a vow. Her faith would not be wasted. If you're watching on television, don't hesitate, grab your phone and hit subscribe to my channel so you'll never miss out on our amazing characters. The barn raising at the Garrett farm drew nearly everyone in the valley. By sunrise, wagons were arriving loaded with lumber, tools, and food. Women set up tables under the shade trees, while men organized materials and discussed the best approach for the construction. Ilara and Caleb arrived early. their wagon carrying tools and several pies Ilera had baked the night before. As they pulled up, Ilera noticed the momentary hush that fell over some of the gathered people, but it was followed by nods of acknowledgement and even a few welcoming waves. Paul Garrett strode over immediately, his hand extended to Caleb. "Glad you're here," he said loudly enough for others to hear. "We'll need your expertise on those main beams." The work began in earnest as the sun climbed higher. Caleb found himself at the center of the heavy lifting, his strength and knowledge of construction making him invaluable. Men who had previously crossed the street to avoid him now worked beside him, following his quiet directions for the safest way to raise the massive timbers. "Steady now," Caleb called as they lifted a particularly heavy beam. "Tom, shift left. Mr. Garrett, hold your end higher." His voice carried natural authority, and the men responded without question. Ilera worked with the women, but she couldn't help watching the transformation taking place. Where once there had been suspicion and hostility, now there was respect, grudging from some perhaps, but genuine from others. Around midday, when the sun was at its fiercest, Martha Garrett called everyone for the noon meal. Tables groaned under the weight of fried chicken, fresh bread, preserves, and pies. As people lined up to fill their plates, Ilera noticed some of the men making space for Caleb, including him in their conversations about the work. "That's a clever way to joint those beams," Doc Bradley was saying to Caleb. "Where did you learn that technique?" "My people build lodges to last many seasons," Caleb replied. "Must stand strong against winter storms, summer heat. Different materials, but same principles." Sheriff Dalton, who had been listening, nodded thoughtfully. "Makes sense. Good knowledge to have." Ilera felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the sun. This was what she'd hoped for. Not just tolerance, but acceptance, even appreciation for what Caleb could contribute. The afternoon's work progressed smoothly, the barn's frame taking shape against the sky. Young Tom Bradley worked closely with Caleb, eager to learn, asking questions about everything from construction to horsemanship. As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, the barn stood complete, lacking only the finishing touches that the Garretts would add over the coming weeks. The crowd gathered to admire their handiwork, tired but satisfied. Paul Garrett climbed onto a makeshift platform of planks and cleared his throat. "Friends, neighbors," he began, his voice carrying across the gathering. "Today, we've done something fine. We've rebuilt what was lost, and we've done it together." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "But I want to say something else," Paul continued. "A week ago, I stood with those who wanted to drive out a man because he was different, because I was afraid of what I didn't understand. I was wrong. Caleb Stone risked his life to save my daughter. He asked nothing in return. Today, he's worked harder than any 3 men to help rebuild what we'd lost. He's shown me what it means to be a true neighbor." Paul raised the cup of cider he was holding. "So, I propose a toast to Caleb Stone, who saw a child in danger and didn't hesitate, who met hatred with dignity and fear with courage. Welcome to our community, friend. Here, here." The response was loud, and from most, sincere. Cups were raised throughout the gathering. Caleb stood frozen, clearly overwhelmed by this public acknowledgement. Ilera moved to his side, her hand finding his. He squeezed it gently, drawing strength from her presence. "Speech," someone called out, and others took up the cry. Caleb looked at Ilera, who nodded encouragingly. He stepped forward, his voice carrying the quiet dignity that had become familiar to her. "Thank you," he began simply. "Where I come from, we say barn raising is sacred act, not just building, creating shelter for life, for growth. Today, we build more than barn. We build understanding." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I know some still have doubts, have fear. This is natural. But I say this. I am here to work, to help, to be good neighbor. My hand is open to all who will take it." He looked directly at several of the men who had been most hostile, including the Harmon brothers. "We are different, yes, but we share same sun, same rain, same hope for good harvest, same love for children, same need for community. These things make us same, more than skin makes us different." The silence that followed was profound. Then old Lars Olsen began to clap, his weathered hands making sharp sounds in the still air. Others joined him until the applause was general, if not quite universal. Ilara saw Jim Harmon lean over to whisper something to his brother Pete. Their faces were troubled, conflicted. Change, she realized, came hard to some. As the gathering began to break up, people loading wagons and preparing for the journey home, many stopped to speak with Caleb directly. Some offered tentative invitations to look at a horse with a troublesome leg, to advise on a building project, to join a hunting party. Mrs. Patterson approached Ilara, her usual stern expression softened. "I owe you an apology," she said stiffly. "I judged hastily and spoke harshly. Your Mr. Stone has proved himself a man of character." "Thank you, Prudence," Ilara said, choosing to be gracious. "That means a great deal." Mrs. Patterson hesitated, then added in a lower voice, "You'll both come to the church social next month, won't you? I think it would be good for everyone." Ilara blinked in surprise. The church socials were the heart of the community's social life. To be invited, both of them, was no small thing. "We'll consider it," she said carefully. As they loaded their wagon, Ilara noticed Dale Morrison standing at the edge of the gathering, his face dark with displeasure. He'd arrived late and had not participated in the barn raising. Now he watched Caleb with calculating eyes. "Trouble," Caleb said quietly, following her gaze. "Yes," Ilara agreed. "He won't give up easily. Today's success will only make him more determined." They were interrupted by little Emma Garrett running up to them, her mother hurrying behind. "Mr. Caleb," the child called. "I made this for you." She held out a small cloth doll, crudely stitched, but made with obvious care. "It's a guardian angel," she explained solemnly. "Like you were my angel, to keep you safe." Caleb knelt to accept the gift, his face soft with emotion. "Thank you, little one. I will treasure this." Emma threw her arms around his neck in a quick hug, then ran back to her mother, who smiled tearfully at them both. "If you've made it this far, I know you're a true fan of WWL. From the bottom of my heart, I wish your day is filled with health and happiness, and may a little stroke of luck find you in the next 15 minutes. Don't forget to share it with me in the comment." As they drove home in the gathering dusk, Ilara felt a deep contentment. The wagon rolled smoothly along the rutted road, and she found herself leaning slightly against Caleb's shoulder. "Today was good," Caleb said quietly. "Yes," Ilara agreed. "Better than I dared hope." "You gave me this," Caleb said. "This chance, this acceptance, started with you seeing man, not Ghostwalker." "You earned it yourself," Ilara protested. "With your courage, your hard work, your dignity in the face of hatred. We earned together," Caleb said. "You and me, partners." The word hung between them, weighted with meaning beyond the practical partnership of running the ranch. As they crested the hill and saw their ranch spread below them, warm lights glowing in the windows of the house, Ilara felt a surge of emotion. "My family would have liked you," she said suddenly. "They would have seen what I see." Caleb was quiet for a moment. "They were good people to raise a woman like you. I honor their memory. I know you do," Ilara said softly. "And I think they would want me to be happy again. To live, not just survive." They pulled up to the house as full darkness fell. As Caleb helped Ilara down from the wagon, his hands lingered on her waist for just a moment longer than necessary. Their eyes met in the lamplight spilling from the house, and Ilara saw in his face the same longing she felt in her heart. "Ilara," he began, his voice rough with emotion. "I know," she whispered. "I feel it too. But tonight is for celebrating today's victory," Caleb finished. "Tomorrow will bring what it brings." Inside, Ilara set about making a late supper while Caleb tended to the horses. When he came in, she had set the table with her best dishes, the ones she hadn't used since her family died. "What's this?" Caleb asked, surprised. "A celebration," Ilara said. "Today you became truly part of this community. That deserves marking." They ate by candlelight, talking about the day's events, planning for the ranch's future with new hope. The hostility they'd faced wasn't gone entirely, but it had cracked, letting in light. As Ilara cleared the dishes, Caleb pulled out the small leather pouch he'd been carrying. "I have something," he said, suddenly shy. "Been waiting for right moment." He opened the pouch and drew out a small, beautifully crafted arrowhead from white stone. "My mother made this. It is a protective charm. I want you to have it." Ilara took the arrowhead with trembling hands.